questions? Did they come from the literature?
My questions, I had two topics basically. I had first of all like the directness, and then I had trust. So two main topics. And I looked at studies concerning both topics, and some of them were using scenarios. So I looked at how they did it, and I kind of used it as an example, but I didn't use the exact same questions, but I looked at how they asked, like how they phrased their questions, and what's the outcome, what will be the answer to that question, so that I know what kind of data I might get.
Critical scenarios are a very interesting way of collecting data in focus groups because it gets people into thinking a situation, right? Even if they don't have a direct experience. And either you create it on your own or you find something and you use it, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, let's say. We were discussing as well the possibility of using an audiovisual format of these scenarios because we found tapes from intercultural communication. Linda Beamers, I'm sure she will be happy to share them again.
Yeah, something audio,
audiovisual. And we looked at them, you took some ideas from the audiovisual tapes.
Yeah, because they were, there was a Chinese communication setting, and since I'm German, I didn't know how they would approach the situation, so I looked at the videos to see how Chinese would do it, how they would communicate, because if I would have written it, I would have written it from a German point of view, and not from a Chinese perspective, so that's why I looked at them.
Yeah, so that's interesting because if you didn't have the video, then you should have asked a Chinese person to help you write a scenario that reflects the cultural interpretation of a situation or how people would communicate. So that's why I think it was really exciting in it, is you see the qualitative at its grandeur, let's say, in Nanny's case, because designing those scenarios was really interesting. It was an interesting process back and forth, discussing.
I think the critical incident technique was quite good, especially for intercultural communication, because you have that given context, you have one situation everyone has to refer to, but from their own point of view. So you have a fixed context and fixed situation, and everyone can bring in their own points of view and discuss it from their own.
So that was the flexibility behind it.
Yeah, like since I had really small focus groups, the questions I asked, it was more like open-ended questions, more like a guideline. So it's not that I asked the same question to every focus group, but I asked similar questions to all focus groups, so that I got answers to my questions. But I also allowed them to talk to me, what's the word? To share their perceptions on the scenarios with me, and not just strictly answer my questions like yes, no, whatever. So, but asking them to tell me what they think about it, so that I got really their point of view and not just them answering my questions.
Yeah, it was very, very in-depth, rich data she got. So the transcripts then became an interesting activity for you, trying to identify the themes.
Yeah.
So it must have taken you a while to transcribe.
Especially the Germans.
Why was that?
No, transcribing is a time-consuming activity for any of you who will be choosing that data collection method, right? It's also, I like it because it's there always with me. I can go back and refer to it and look at it again, and you can always keep analyzing the data. But going back into the scenarios for the focus group, you can actually find some friends of yours, give them a little bit of a script and ask them to do a basic action, and then record it and use that as a means. You might consider that, Role playing, exactly, because people respond well to the visual, stuff, and we consider that as well at some point. So there are different options. So it's fascinating, I think, in this case, and that's why I asked Nanny to do it, because
Do we have to do the transcribing ourselves?
Yes.
Is that what is recommended? So you
well, no,
understand?
you can pay someone, but particularly for Nanny, there were German students, you did that yourself. If you ask someone else to do the transcription, they're not familiar with accents or expressions, they might be missing something.
It's only good for you to get more familiar with your own data.
And you're actually reflecting.
You're
as you
thinking
go.
along.
Did you have difficulties to keep quiet
bias out of it?
The transcribing?
No.
Yeah, well, the whole
The analyzing?
analyzing part, if you,
Yeah, I think if you do it on culture, intercultural communication, you always have the culture of the researcher influencing it a bit, but I try to stick as much as I could to the actual words of the participants. I quoted quite a lot from my transcripts, so that I said, well, that's actually what they said, that's not my interpretation of it. So that's how I try to reduce the research bias.
But also, Nani made sure that you talked about the researcher's bias. It was part of your methodology that I'm German and I'm having a German focus group and a Chinese and a Kiwi. Therefore, at some point, her cultural interpretation was there. But that's the beauty of qualitative research. It acknowledges the interpretation of the researcher. As long as we know it. If we know it and you're upfront with it, but as Nani says, there are different ways of addressing that validity, reliability issue. So every time you come to a conclusion, say, okay, it's my interpretation, but here is also the quote from the transcript, so you can make up your own mind whether I'm saying the right thing or not.
also we could say that.
Oh, absolutely. The findings of this kind of research, and once Nani's work is approved, you can access it online. It's very detailed because you group it thematically, but you provide evidence. So what you do is you code your participants. Focus group 1, female participant, or participant 1, or whatever. So you constantly refer to what they said as evidence.
And that's what some of the literature has shown as well, that we've done really earlier on.
So, but look, I just, for concluding, look at Nani's starting point and finishing line within 2 semesters. Okay? So because, I said that there is an anxiety here, how we're going to narrow our topic. And I keep saying, and you'll hate me hearing saying it's a process, it will happen naturally and eventually as long as you keep engaging with it, right? But this is what came up, I remember, and then when you did that and we were looking, okay, you're looking at 2 variables, she wanted to measure openness and directness in multicultural settings, and then she focused it even more. She dropped openness, although it became part of the findings eventually, but that was the main question. So you see how you narrow it down
She
quite a
did say
lot.
that Linda Beamer actually
Yeah, I
asked
emailed-
about how can you measure the
I was in
openness.
email contact with
So I
Linda.
guess that actually helps as well.
Yeah.
Because third parties eyes.
You can, it's very qualitative, you have to rely on perceptions, but these are questions that we need to ask. And also by focusing a lot more in one aspect, made it a lot more manageable as well. But openness did come up.
Yep, as open communication.
Yeah.
And for direct.
And the other things that came up, like politeness, for instance. So, what was interesting is that although she was looking at directness and trust, through the focus groups, other things came up, like, directness is considered to be, by the Chinese and the Germans and the Kiwis, either polite or impolite. It's a perception, being direct, Kiwis thought it's rude, right? Being direct in Germans means you're honest. Being direct in China means trustworthy, perhaps?
It can be offensive.
It can be offensive as well, depending on the business, on the setting.
Same Japanese too.
But you see that in that culture depends. In this one is very clear. In the Q is very clear as well. So
What was good about the focus groups was that actually my Chinese participants came up with they told me what they think about it, which they brought into different concepts I didn't think about that would be interrelated to my topic, because I looked at it from my point of view and I thought, okay, this and this and this will be popping up, but there was actually something else they mentioned which I didn't think about at all. So it was good to have the focus group allowing the participants to really contribute their own thoughts to it. So not just measure what you want to measure, but actually finding out what impacts their perceptions.
So it was actually not that we supervise that research, but it was actually a very thorough piece of research, very, very thorough. So well done.
Thank you.
So keep in mind, therefore, that it's a journey. It's a long journey. You just started it, and you just saw the end result of this lady here. Thank you very much, Henry.
Cheers. Good luck.
And it would be